Live from Washington, D.C., it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio. QLPOR, as it's widely known, features a bevy of poets, spoken word artists, and live poetry readings with best-selling authors. Your host is Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
Hello, everyone. My special guest is poet Rawle James. He hails from Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Rawle.
Thank you, Michael. So great to be here, finally here with you.
My first question to you is, what is poetry?
Poetry, that's an interesting one. Poetry to me, the classics describe it as anyone that can look at life experiences and put a creative spin so others could then also understand it. But to me, poetry is everything. Poetry is life. Poetry is me, it's you. Everything I see, when we think of poetry, rhythm and flow, then I see rhythm and flow in everything, in all life. So poetry is not just artistic words coming from an artist. Mm-hmm. Poetry could be found in mathematics and science, in medicine. It could be found in someone cleaning the streets. It could be found in a mother looking after a family. It could be found in a father that's out every day slinging hash to protect and provide for his family. It can be found in anything. So to me, poetry is just life, and our ability to then use our creative license, use our creative tools, our creative, powers to then capture that in words that hopefully will resonate with others.
Very nice, very nice. So again, let's flesh it out. Why is it important? Why do we do what we do?
Well, for me, that's a really good question, because poetry kind of came late to me in life. Poetry's been, I think, 14 years in my life. When I was living in Western Canada, I was teaching at a college, and I was positioning an assignment to my students. And I'm the one that wrote the curriculum, so I knew exactly what was to be said. But in that moment, this blast of inspiration came through my being and out my mouth, and I started giving my students an assignment to write a poem about an experience in their life or about their lives. Now, what I was teaching was more along the line of self-improvement, self-mastery, that sort of thing. And I'm like, where's this coming from? But I went with it. And I figured if I'm going to give them this assignment, I'm going to write a poem. And that's how I basically wrote my first poem. I didn't go to university. I didn't study, creative writing or anything like that. But I've always told I was a good writer. And I just wrote a poem. So to me, why is poetry important? I think we all have a voice within. And not everyone will express it through poetry. But for us poets, I think there's a kindling side, that fire that is stoked, that we are driven to share how we see the world, our experiences through the creative measures of poetry, bringing words together creatively, whether they rhyme or positioning metaphors to explain how we see things. And maybe to invite others to look at things, not necessarily just through our words, but maybe to tap in and see if there's a poet within. Because I believe there's a poet within all of us.
Very nice.
So I think, poets, our job is not just to speak of our experience, but I truly think, I call on serious poets to also talk about how they see the world, right?
Yes.
And their hopes and aspirations for the world, or change or revolution, all that sort of thing. Poets play a very important part in our society, a very important part in our education, in our social structure, right? It's probably one of the reasons when there's military coups, some of the first people they kill are artists, because it is true. We have the ability to help people to shift their perspective or to look at things different.
Well, let me ask you that. What are some of the predominant themes that you write about?
I've been told I'm like a spiritual poet. I write a lot about, not just love, but self-mastery, choice. I'll use Yah's name when I say Yah, God, in my poetry. So a lot of my poetry is really about uplifting our human consciousness and getting us to see that we are all connected and we're individually having this experience in this collective understanding of humanity. And it is not to get the world to be kumbaya and utopic, but to understand that we're all connected and we're all here to experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of life.
All right. I like that.
So,
Please share a point.
okay. Thanks for asking, my friend. Thank you. It was a cold and snowy day. The kind of day where the weather reflected the unpredictability of what was. I was lost in the sea of my attention, surrounded by a fog that hosted the demons of torment. Then out of nowhere, I heard the lighthouse of your voice. I could not see, but I felt your space within. For too long, I've been trapped as a victim in the echoes of my mind. Venom coursed through my veins as toxic words fumbled with each other, while impatiently waiting to be spewed. My body slammed in anguish, battered from years of being lost and blinded by the rage of my victim's cry. I straddled the thin line between here and there as I swirled in my hangover of grief. My arms acted like a cane that swayed side to side, gingerly searching for a lifeline as I prayed that hope would shelter me from the turmoil of my memories. My mind was a distorted canvas of vibrant colors that housed the whirlwinds of chaos as I stood fully exposed at the crossroads of my discomfort. And for a moment, my heart forgot its purpose and skipped beats as tears flooded its chambers with the waters of inevitability. At that same moment, your voice was an invitation to the door of my rebirth. I was cocooned in the placenta of the unknown as dark clouds rained the numbness of sadness. Like a deer in the headlights, I stood paralyzed, unable to run from the fight. My suffering had reached its boiling point from years of piled one-sided perceptions beneath the canopy of my forest. Psychosis or the burning bush, either way, your voice echoed from the valley of my shadows as a lifeline to the madness of that moment. A voice I knew, a voice I know. The tenor of your words was like a sunset backdrop in the eye of my storm. A gift from the depths that provided a force field protecting my battered soul as waves gingerly crashed over me, each serving as a reminder to the spirit I am. Caught in the intersectionality of seconds, space was an illusion of linear time, and I was an unbalanced hiccup of insight awaiting an audience. The gentleness of your voice revealed wonders to my discomfort. I was still unsure of how or why, but unknowingly the process of shedding my old skin of suffering had begun. There's a beginning and an end to all life. My dash is my vault of wisdom to where my experiences are deposited and insight awaits withdrawal. It also houses your voice as a reminder that the light cannot exist without the dark. I am but one drop in an ocean of drops. I am here to experience all. Otherwise, this journey would be pointless and, quite frankly, boring. So until further notice, I'm celebrating every damn thing.
Okay.
End of poem.
Right.
That piece,
Thanks.
that
Thank
piece
you.
is called The Voice. And on December 17, 2001 at 1:45 in the PM, I had a moment. That epiphany. I heard a voice. I heard the voice of Yah that basically said, are you ready to understand life in a different way? But it really was saying, are you ready to understand you? Really understand you? And that moment led to me stepping into the abyss. And two amazing earth angels showed up to help me through that journey. So that poem kind of encapsulates that moment of December 17th and life forward. So
Thank you for sharing. It's rare that I close my eyes during a poem, during the entire length of a poem. But I wanted to really hear what you were saying. I wanted to listen to what you were saying. The poem touched me. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking, my brother.
All right. Now, how does a poem begin for you, my friend? With an idea, a form, or an image?
I get these downloads that I call it downloads. I rarely sit down to write a poem. Like to just sit down, okay, today I'm going to dedicate these next 2 hours to write and start writing. I get these downloads. I get these inspirations. Sometimes they come complete. Sometimes they come, more times than not, they come, needing me to add my 2 cents to it. And I speak that way because my partner is the universe, is Yah. And I get these downloads. That piece too came from an initial thought that was maybe a couple of sentences. And then the partnership is, I'll give you the thought. And then I have to then sit down and through my life experiences, understanding what came to me, develop it from there.
Right.
So to me, that's how I work. I'm pretty sure I'm no different than many artists that get these blasts of inspirations. But, I don't know how many pieces I've written over the 14 years. I think maybe 5 pieces I actually sat down without a thought to write a piece. And those pieces I wrote were pieces that I were commissioned to do so. So the commission was the thought that sparked the inspiration to write it. But it's like right now I have in my drive, I have a document called, Poems to Work On. And I've got probably over 100 and something thoughts in there that I just systematically attack. Depending on the day and the energies, whatever one I'm feeling, and then I'll work on it. Once I feel it's done, I take it out of it and then put it into a document for itself. So, for me, that's kind of my process. And because I think I'm pretty good at now being present, staying in the moment and the now, I've been receiving so much lately, so much.
Please share with me an early experience where you learned that poetic language had power.
Yeah, wow. Well, as I was telling you before, poetry came to me 14 years ago, and that experience with my students led to the birth of a vehicle called the Inspired Word Cafe, which was a simple open mic online vehicle, not online, but an open mic process that I created to give my students an opportunity to share their poetry. Because in the class, when they came back to recite, and we all recited, and I did that with like 3 classes, we were just blown away with the brilliance that came out. And I just said, we have to share this. And I asked permission if I created like a recital in the school, who would like to share? And a number of them raised their hands. And we did that 2 or 3 times. And then I realized, you know what? I need to take this into the village. So I took it into the village and it was just received. The timing was right. And I realized the power of it because I initially created it for my students, but then other people started showing.
Okay.
And I had a woman one time came in, this elderly woman, silvered haired. I think she was probably mid-80s. She came up to you afterwards and she goes, thank you for allowing me to recite. I said, oh, of course, you're welcome. I said, this is why the Inspired Word Cafe is here. And she goes, for years, I've wanted to share my poetry and never had the courage to do so.
Wow.
And she goes, I showed up to your show to support one of my neighbor's kids who goes to your school. And she goes, your words of encouragement and how you encourage people to take the mic. And even if you're fearful, we're here. You're not falling alone. We'll catch you. She goes, that inspired me. And she goes, this is why I came up and asked you, could I get on the mic tonight? She came there without any thoughts of sharing. So I think in that moment, I realized the power of poetry, the power of creating space that allows people to shine. Let them spread their wings. Go ahead and fall. We got you.
Right.
You're
Very
not
nice.
alone.
Very
So to
nice.
me, that's the power. This is why I do what I do. Right? It's to create space for others to go. It's not for me to show you how magnificent you are. It's for you to show yourself how magnificent you are. I just created the space and kind of gently have my hand around you saying, I'm here with you.
Nice. Very nice. Please share a poem.
Okay, my brother. This one's a little different. It's called Suspended Moment. I love this piece.
All right.
It's like one of my favorites, but don't tell the other poems.
Yeah, sometimes they do get mad, so I keep it to myself. All right.
Yeah. The other night, as I stood in the light rain conversing with my higher power, in the full practice of gratitude for being on the right side of the dirt and the day's experience, this happened. You know that feeling? The feeling when you move your hand just right and you hit one singular raindrop in full flight? That feeling of exhilaration? It's like being a kid on the swing, reaching the apex from a push. And just before the descent, there's a moment where you float in a suspended moment. To fully let go, hands off the rope, arms in perpendicular splendor, that sensation of flying like a bird, carefree as spirit unplugs from the eternal story. Being connected to the innocence of the moment, in the existence of the moment. I am a witness to my thoughts as they dissipate before my eyes. Gravity and I dance a dance that seduces my imagination to be heroic in all future moments. That state of oneness is what death might feel like. No pain, no knowing, just being. I'm in grace with everything and nothing of the one raindrop. Its magic is the same infinite jolt that births life as it propels me through the unknown. From within the cryptic underbelly of the universe, it's been revealed to me that the universe is my mind that crafts a series of suspended moments. And as I blindly navigate through the fog of memories that shapes the illusion of my reality, my memories are frames of suspended moment where front is back and back is being, in a scrambled sequence playing in the theater of consciousness where time is neither space nor whole. So here I am, snatched back into my moment of gratitude, shaking my head in disbelief, questioning the lucid feelings that shape the reality within my world. Either way, a glimpse was experienced, a glance into the power of the moment. The oneness, stillness, chaotic, playful, noisy, beautiful nature that is life. Connecting me to the collective consciousness that wraps me warmly in the blissful ignorance of knowledge. Here I stand in the rain, knowing that feeling cannot be washed away as I free fall on my swing, back to zero, floating in a suspended moment that is everything and nothing. End of piece.
Right.
I love that piece.
All right. Why?
Well, it was a true moment. I came home from work, I went outside to have a smoke and talk to the universe. And, I practice gratitude, not just once a day, all the time, but usually at the end of the day, I'll go out and be grateful and thankful. And it was raining. It started to rain. And I moved my hand and hit a raindrop.
Yeah.
It's not like a raindrop hit me. And again, as soon as that happened, I was flooded with this piece, and I ran into the house and I grabbed my book and I just started writing like crazy. And this is the result of it. So,
you speak so eloquent and with such passion and conviction. What I'd like to know is, what is the relationship between your speaking voice and your written voice?
I'd like to think they're pretty connected because I tend to write how I speak. And so a lot of times, my writing may not be grammatically correct, but, look, I think it's important not just to know our frailties, but to know our strengths.
Yes.
And I've been blessed with a voice, and I've been blessed with the ability to speak words that inspire. So I think it's important that when you're writing, that comes through as well. That even if I am not the one reading or reciting the words, like if you were reading my words, you can still hear my voice.
Yes.
And that's some of the greatest compliments I've gotten. I have my people I go to say, hey, here's a new piece. What do you think? And 9 out of 10 times they go, oh, man, this is brilliant because I'm reading it. I can hear your voice in my head.
Wow.
Reading these words. So I think that for me, there's a connection. So I write to the way I speak. I write to the power of my voice. And I think you're similar in that way. You have a voice and a command of the language that commands respect, that commands, oh, I don't know this guy, but I want to hear what he has to say.
Yes.
So, we experienced that when you came on my show. You had everyone in the palm of your hand because of your voice, but also the way you use it and how you perform your words. And I could hear. So if I read now any of your poetry, I've got Michael in my head. And I think too, that helps us connect with people on a authentic level and a real grassroots level, connecting with people from the inside out.
My thing has always been that if you wrote it, live it.
Exactly. There you go. I love that.
I'd like you to share with me the titles of 5 of your poems. Any 5?
Well, I read The Voice, Suspended Moments, Equinox for Change, which is probably one I'll read. Her Strength is Her Beauty. Just wrote a new piece that I'm really, really, really liking a lot. I wrote one for my daughter called Daffodil. And then this one I'm really loving is a very new piece. It's called The Space Between Space. So I don't know, it's probably like 6 titles.
My question is, what should you consider when titling a poem? What should you think about?
It's funny. When I'm writing, I don't think about a title until it's done. And then I will read the poem because the title is within the poem. So for me, when I don't sit and try to think of, what am I going to call this before I start writing? I just write. Like I said, I get these thoughts. And then when I go back to play with the thought, I don't worry about a title. I don't worry about trying to write the finished piece in the first sit down. I just allow the energies to move me and trust my experience and trust all my skills and abilities that this lump of clay, this slab of marble, I'm like a sculptor. Like Michelangelo said, I just chip away all the bad parts to let it shine. And that's kind of how I treat a poem. So within the finished product lies the title for me.
All right.
My job now is to now kind of hone in on it.
So for you, the poem comes first, then the title.
Then the title.
Okay.
Yep. And it's been like that with all of them, not some. It's been like that with all of them.
Now, all great writers have great writing influences. Who are some of yours, and what makes them great in your eyes?
Wow. Who am I writing? I'm not a poet that knows a lot of. I like Whitman.
Okay.
I like Walt Whitman a lot. I wouldn't say he's a poet, but I like W.B. Du Bois. I like a lot of his early writing. Langston Hughes. Whether Shakespeare was real or not, I love the creative flow of Shakespeare. I love the variety of his writing. But I also go further back. I love a lot of the Stoic masters. So Marcus Aurelius is someone that I really lean on a lot.
Right.
Seneca. Yeah. These are the people I tend to listen to. And Rami, am I?
Yes.
Yeah. I tend to vibe with his work a lot. So
your work, does it contain a lot of passion?
Yeah. My life has been full of passion.
Right. And emotions, right?
Hmm?
Right?
Say that again?
Emotions, passion,
Well,
emotions.
yeah. I mean, that's what drives us. And so I try to bring the emotions of the time. If I'm writing about something from the past, I try to bring those feelings, those emotions into what I'm writing. So you get a sense of what I'm, maybe what I was feeling or what I was thinking.
All right.
But for me, more importantly, I think I like to include emotions and feelings because I don't necessarily want you to hear a poem that I've done or read a poem that I've written and have you try to emulate why I wrote it. I write with feelings and emotions because maybe it will move you and you'll hear something in it that you can identify with. Like I said, a lot of my poetry is spiritual in nature. A lot of my poetry is really about inviting us to step inside the abyss and to get our house in order. And a lot of times, I've heard people said, "Oh my God, man, I just heard you read that piece, and it's like you were in my head. You're capturing how I'm feeling and I'm thinking." So my thing with that is, hopefully, then that's an invitation for you to step into yourself and to start really understanding yourself in a different way. So I think it's very important.
My
Sure.
question is, can a person call him or herself a poet if they don't feel strong emotions?
I think so.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Well, because I mean, it's like back in my business days, in my corporate days, we had technical writers. If you read a service agreement or you read, some of these agreements for these apps, they're all technical in nature. They're void of emotions and feelings, but yet they still carry a power and it's a tool of communication. So I think someone that may not write with a lot of emotions and feelings can still consider themselves a poet because maybe they don't think they're writing with emotions and feelings.
Okay.
But whoever's listening might hear emotions and feelings.
It's true.
So I could sit here and say, yeah, this poem has no feelings and emotions, but that may not be someone's perspective when they listen to the poem. So either way, to me, it still carries value, even if you're just writing from a technical standpoint.
Now, is a poem letting your guard down or building a wall? What do you think about that?
Well, some might say both, but I think when you're writing a poem, particularly when you're writing about your experiences and some of the harsher ones and the emotionally charged ones, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. And particularly not just writing it, when you share it, when you put it out in print or you have the courage to recite it, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. So I think, I think you're definitely putting yourself out there and it's scary for some. But I think when most people put themselves out there and then they see how it's received, they realize very quickly, what was I so afraid of? Right. I think it's important to be vulnerable.
All right.
Vulnerability is attractive because it says to everyone else, hey, I'm no different than you. Right. And to me, vulnerability is one of the key foundations to building authentic relationships.
So does it hurt you to write poetry? If not, why not?
Does it hurt me?
Yes.
What does hurt mean? Because, yeah, no, it was rhetorical in a sense. I don't think I've ever written a poem that has hurt me, but I've written a poem where my hurt has been included in the poem. So it doesn't hurt me. It actually, it frees me.
Talk about
Well, when I write I have a poem that I call, Free of the Cage. When I put these words down, it frees me. It frees me of what anxieties, whatever fears that I may have. Not so much in life, but, will people like it? Will they accept it? And when I put it down and I'll read it and I go, oh, that doesn't make sense. They won't get it. I very quickly trust all my skills and abilities and my experience to go, that's not truth. That's not truth. Some will like it, some won't like it. Who cares? So when I write, I don't write for others. I write for me. And then do I have the courage to put it out there and not worry about what people may think or not think? Don't get me wrong. I'm human. I want people to like it. But if they don't, who cares?
Do you have the poem with you?
Free of the Cage?
Yes.
Of course I do.
Love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
Let me just pull it up real quick. It's, all right. I am free of the cage, out of the mind's prison, to see the candlelight shining the art of my life. I am my joys, I am my mistakes, in beauty's splendor, no longer lonely, no longer paid. I am free to fall, free to soar. No longer afraid to be, I welcome the dark clouds dancing in the rain's content. Foolishly in love, I am the morning dew. I am the evening mist, the key that unlocks, no longer lonely, no longer pain. I am free to soar. I am the secret to my desires. I am lost in my pain, to be found as my cure. An unwavering idea, a squandered time, no longer worried, anxious no more, no longer lonely, no longer pain. I am free to fall, free to soar. I am free of the cage, in flow with grace, as I make my way forward, back to the unknown. I am free of the lies, free in my truth, no longer lonely, no longer pain. I am free, 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 until I am no more. End of piece.
You know, sometimes when I hear a piece, I need a moment to process it. I just need a moment.
Thank you.
Let's imagine for a moment that a poem is like a cake. All right? What are some of the most prevalent ingredients that goes into the concoction we call a poem? You bake the cake.
Baking a cake of poem, well, for me, obviously, is that initial thought that will be the foundation for what's to come. And then, I have to put in, my love and my trust of self. I put in my vulnerability. And then I, depending on the kind of poem I want it to be, whether I'm going to rhyme it, which I rarely do. I don't sit and think of the metaphors that I want to put in, but I trust that they will show. So when I talk about putting in my vulnerability, it's allowing myself to be open and kind of getting out of my own way to not overthink it and let those natural themes and vehicles come through. I put in a lot of trust. I put in a lot of what I call Ubuntu into my poems.
What is that?
And Ubuntu is an all African philosophy. Simply is the simplest form is I am because you are. So when I write, I am writing, but I'm writing because of you. And then when I put it out there, it is for you. And it's for you to eat this cake. And I can't tell you how it's going to taste to you. Only you can determine that. So if I put those ingredients of love and trust and vulnerability and being brutally honest, because I think that's one of the things that comes through in my poems is that I'm just being brutally honest with my experience and my perception of the world. It's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just my perception. But if I put that in, it comes true. I think you would like the cake that I do.
And that's a perfect segue into this question.
Mm.
I want you to tell me about a poem that you were proud of writing, but afraid to share for fear of misinterpretation.
I wrote a poem. Yes, I don't even know if I remember the title right now. Or Human I Am, I think it's called.
Okay.
I had an experience where I was doing one of the Zoom poetry online shows. This was a new show to me, but I was excited about going into it and signed up and had an open mic spot. So I'm sitting listening to the other poets before me. And I got a message from one of the organizers going, your pronouns might offend some people.
Okay.
Could you change it? And I'm reading this and I'm about to answer, and I notice I can't answer because they booted me back to the waiting room. I'm like, oh, so if you look at my Zoom handle, it says human male. Somehow that, and it wasn't that anyone complained. They were like being a minority report and making sure no crime was committed before I kind of stepped back, and then I just go, okay, I left. You didn't even have the courage to come and talk to me. So I pulled up the email that we were chatting with, and I just said, hey, you guys asked me about my pronouns. Number one, they're not pronouns. Number two, I'm not mocking anyone. Number three, you didn't have the courage to ask me a question. You just automatically assume. And then you had the gall to say, we're about inclusion and all voices, but yet you didn't once stop to think and take my feelings into consideration. And I go, your version of inclusion is not something that I recognize. Thank you very much. Have a good life. They responded with this long thing trying to justify, which I didn't feel the need to respond to because I said what I needed to say. And because of that experience, a poem came out of it. And I remember when I first read it, I was like, I was pretty impressed with it, but I was like, do I really want to share this, especially in light of what's going on with the politics of transgender and all this stuff? But then I said, no, screw it. Damn the torpedoes. And I read it. But like I said, I have my moments. I just don't get stuck in those kind of low vibing thoughts.
Right. So much is happening in our world. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. What do you view as being the role of a poet in modern day society?
Well, I can't speak for all poets. This poet, I believe my job is to do my best in communicating the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. In your case, I love the way you said the indifference. And to share it as how I see it, to be brutally honest with my truth. That's why I always position to people, this is just my truth and how and my perception, how I see things. I don't believe all poets are going to pick up the mantle and get into the fight of, you wouldn't call it social justice or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think there's enough of us that do want to change the world.
Right.
And my way of wanting to change the world is to get us all to appreciate that we are here to experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I write poetry not just from a spiritual standpoint of the ethers, because for me, true spiritual is everything that we do, because I am spirit in this temple. I didn't come to this world seeking a spiritual experience. I came here as spirit to master this human experience. And it's in this human experience of duality, I'm going to experience the good, bad, ugly, and beautiful. And too many people now today only want good and beautiful. And they somehow want to eradicate the bad and ugly when we've never been able to do that. Because why? History has shown me we will experience good, bad, ugly, and beautiful. And even when good and beautiful show up, bad and ugly are right there with it. Or even when bad and ugly shows up, good and beautiful are right there. So,
they say that to see the world with complete honesty, one should look to comedians, artists, musicians, and poets. What do you think emerges naturally from your work? What comes from you?
I think a lot of things are what you just touched on. But I think the biggest thing is I've talked about this before, and when you hear my work, I think a lot of times it really gets people to stop and to examine themselves.
I agree.
And I think that's, to me, I think that is high compliment, that if my words can invite people to really look at themselves and to really be brutally honest with themselves, then you stand a chance of letting go of the suffering from past experiences that are holding you back, that you're kind of wearing around like an anchor. But it's like an anchor we wear around kind of proudly, but not so proudly because, if I get rid of it, I might be happy. And I don't know if I want that or if I'm even worthy of that. So for me, I try to be brutally honest with my experiences in my poetry to say, hey, you're not alone. I felt like a victim. I went through sexual abuse and witnessing my own mother's abuse and all the life traumas that I've gone through. And yet here I stand in my 60-second rotation around the sun, more in love with myself than I ever been. So, if one can do it, so can another. So if my words can invite people to really step inside and get their internal house in order, then I think I've mission accomplished.
We've reached my favorite part of the interview. It's what I call a mini poetry concert. This is where you pick 2 or 3 poems, share them back to back, no interruptions from me. Rawle, you're on the stage.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Well, since we were talking about it, I'll read this. This is fresh off the press. It's called A Space Between Space. I've only recited this out loud once, so. There resides a whisper within the space between space that urges me to compel me in all things. From that initial spark, I've been on the path to weather the dark clouds and over time to remove the blinders, revealing the silver lining. My resilience is a wave of stored memories, a touchstone forward into a crest, suspended in a moment of unabated glory that rises vertically into power, releasing its climactic cleansing waters upon my battered soul. And as the waters retract back to the sea, a piece of my soul returns as appreciation for safe passage through the trials of life's spectrum. And forgiveness stands at the ready as a choice when needed be. So that's the newest piece that came out. And let's see, what do I want to share with you? Oh, this is another one of my favorites, but don't tell the other poets.
All right.
Or the other poems. This one is called Her Strength is Her Beauty.
All right.
She is patient with time and expects nothing, for she knows nothing happens without a choice and at the right time. She simply holds space to offer a hand for when I fall, or a shoulder for tears to waterfall. She cloaked my inner child with her unwavering spirit, but my foolish pride had me trapped in the fog of insensibility that just for a moment allowed her beauty to be absent. Only in the constant echoing of doubt did I question her resolve, for you see, her beauty is her strength, and her strength is beauty. And as I stood at the threshold, hesitating at the roads that lay before, feeling alone and abandoned and conflicted by which path to take, I looked for courage void of fear as I searched both high and low for the strength of character that lingered in the chasm of right and left brain thinking, hoping that my choice this time would remove the rose-colored glasses that flooded me with ego's lust for balance between ignorance and blinded intelligence. She's the unspoken whisper that floats upon the trade winds. The subtle, shy slant of her eyes seductively inspires hints of untamed playfulness. A slight tilt of her head highlights her flowing braided hair, and the way it covers a partially crescent moon smile. For reasons beyond my understanding, her beauty shined like never before. As I trembled at the doorway of discomfort, she gently took my hand and placed it upon my heart. And without uttering a word, she reminded me of the flame that burns within. At that moment, her strength was her beauty. Her beauty transcended the moment and appeared as a multitude of orchestrated thoughts. Once again, I embraced her beauty to silence my own will. I accepted her feminine wiles, which unfolded beneath my feet as solid ground. And if I had the audacity to breathe in the particles of her beauty, my lungs will forever be filled, my thirst forever quenched. She invited me into my own vulnerability to see the strength of my own beauty. Together we floated on a bed of water lilies, on a river of her tears, with only imagination as our guide, as our souls frolicked and pranced in the garden of content. She once again reminded me that alone is a construct designed to blind self. And as the day's light crept closer to revealing the night's secrets, I safely cocooned my soul into her beauty to dream dreams of shooting stars that lit up our soul's playground. We fell with the sands of time, witnessing time itself stand still, reborn into our wild and free selves to dance for the sake of the dance, succulently under the stars by the light of the pale moon. For you see, her beauty is her strength, and her strength is beauty. End of piece. And I'll finish with this last piece. What do I want to read?
Actually,
Oh,
I'd like you to save it.
okay.
Yes. I want to ask these couple little questions here, and I'd like you to favor us after you've answered these questions. That'd be a great place to end. Perfect. How would you classify your ability to write poetry? As a creative gift or creative art? Explain your choice.
As a creative gift or creative art?
Yes.
I would say it's more of a creative gift.
Okay.
And why I don't say creative art is I'm not necessarily focused on getting my poetry out in exchange for dollars or accolades or trying to be a known poet, like most poets, if anyone does really truly value my poetry and it gets that kind of exposure, it'll be long after I am dust in the wind. So it's more, is a creative expression of me. It is a tool that I use to get across my spiritual message, my spiritual understanding of life. To me, that's most important. My poetry kind of represents my current day walk. I live a very basic, simple existence. I've kind of adopted Gandhi's philosophy of I live simply so others could simply live. I don't need much in life. I need to breathe air. I need to ingest food and water. And I just need a pen and paper to capture thoughts. And then a place to where I could share with others. So for me, it's a creative expression more so than a creative art.
Do you think you were meant to be a poet?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I was always creative as a kid. Growing up in Brooklyn, we loved playing sports. Loved playing sports. Football and baseball were my two loves. But then I loved singing. I sang in my in my grade 6 choir. I wanted to do a school play when in grade 8 at Winthrop Junior High. I'd won the lead to our grade 8 play, but then I backed out because softball came out that same week and I won the second baseman job and my buddies were giving me a hard time. So I chose softball over the play. But I always remember that moment, man, what if, right? And I still remember having to go in and tell Mr. Chrysler I have to back out of the play. It was pretty cool. He was pretty cool about it, but still.
Right.
And then, my mother raised us very much loving the creative. My mother loved plays and musicals, and I've watched Yankee Doodle Dandy and South Pacific and
I remember those.
And then watching shows like Flip Wilson and stuff. So I always loved the creative, loved singing and stuff. And then, as I got older in life, I moved away and when I was a kid, I used to draw I was a really good artist. I actually won a partial scholarship to an art school in the Midwest that I never did. So I thought all that went away with life and as I got older. And then when I moved out west, I figured, what, I'm going to try to draw again. I picked up a pen and it just wasn't flowing, Michael. It just wasn't happening. I go, you know what? It's done. Dead. And that experience with poetry came up. So
what surprises you most about being a poet? What surprises
you? That people like what I write.
Okay. Tell me more.
That scared little boy is still inside. I honor him. I don't give in to him, but I still honor him. That people actually like what I write and the power that they say that it comes across. And, the young ones back in Kelowna where I live, they created a documentary. I'll share it with you on a later date, but they created a documentary of what the inspired word did and what it meant. And when I see how they talk about the inspired word, how they talk about me, I shake my head and I go, who the hell are you guys talking about? So there's still a part of me that questions what I do and wonder if it makes a difference. But then I also have real intangible proof that it does.
Very nice. We've reached the end of our poetic journey, but I'd like you to share the poem that you plan to share.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll do 2 short ones.
All right, then.
The last one is a gift to everyone.
Okay.
This one is my daughter's 1-year anniversary of her transitioning back to the unknown is coming up. And this is a poem that I wrote for her. One of many I've written for her, but this one is the latest. It's called Daffodil. Every time I see a daffodil, I feel your presence. It's my spirit letting me know you are well. I know where you are. No memory of our time exists. I hope you are being loved by those holding you, like how you held us. Every time they see a daffodil, maybe it reminds them of you. For Irie's love knows no bounds. End of piece. And then this last piece is a piece that I wrote, I don't know when. I don't date my poems, but I wrote it a while back. And it's called It Matters Not. And this is a poem that I present to everyone with love, with all my love, as a reminder that we're all in this together. It matters not that we walk together for me to love you, for my love reflects spirit. It matters not if you can see my love, for my love is the hope in us all. It matters not if you can hear my love, for my love is the sound that echoes eternal life. It matters not if you can feel my love, for my love beats in the hearts of all. It matters not if you know the touch of my love, for my love is the inhaled breath that is life. It matters not if you know of my love. For my love lives now and in all the days to come. It matters not anything, for my love for you is everything.
Wow. I'd like to thank you for sharing your work. How can people stay in touch with you, Rawle?
Well, they can find me on social media. My website is down right now for repair. So if you type in my name, Rawle, Rawle, I use Rawle I Am as my writing name, I-A-M, and my last name, James, on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, I guess TikTok. I have a TikTok presence, but I just kind of post videos. I don't play the TikTok game, but that's the best way to find me until my website goes back up. Sometime this year, I will release my second book. I self-published my first book, but I've kind of since taken that out of publication. I might revise it down the road, but my second book, In Flow with Grace, I will turn into an ebook and release free. I've decided to stop trying to, or I didn't really make much of an effort putting my stuff out there for monies. I'm just going to write and put it out to the people and do with it as you will. But that's the best way to reach me. And I'm always up for a conversation and a coffee, as you know.
Yeah, sure, I know. Where do you go from here? What's next for you creatively?
Well, I have the two vehicles online I created, the Inspired Poetry Corner. So I do a monthly recital every third Sunday of the month, which we just had the honor of experiencing Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram. For those of you, when you listen to this, if you haven't seen it or listened to it, please do. It will change your damn life. Yeah, I said it. But, it's just to really keep honing in the vehicle of the Inspired Poetry Corner. Every month I invite a feature artist and supported by, sometimes up to 12 to 15 other poets. And it's just a way for us to kind of spend a Sunday morning. It's almost become like a Sunday morning church revival where we get to spend and express our spirituality through poetry. I have another vehicle called Home is the Heart, which is an open mic where I invite new voices to come and share their poetry, new and old voices. But it was initially created for poets that write but don't recite, or poets that write that want to recite but they may not have the courage. Come in and come in and jump into the pool. The water is warm, and we're all going to be your life jacket. You're not going to sink. And then I've got some special shows this year. I got one in mind with you. I got some other vehicles that I'm thinking about. I know you and I have something to do in this world that's every day is being revealed more and more. I'm planning a special show for International Women's Month coming up in March, and
Very nice.
One for men in November. So as much as, when I moved back to Toronto, I thought I was moving away from organizing. Honestly, Michael, I think that's my true Spidey skill power. That's the poetry in me. Mm-hmm. It's to organize and bring people together. That's really, I think, what my one of my skills is, just like you. That's why you and I are very much brothers. Being able to bring people together and offer them a space where they can share, speak their truth.
As I think about your work, I've been really thinking during our time together. And what I like about it is that it's analytical and emotional at the same time. It's esoteric and accessible at the same time. And it works. It works.
It's high praise coming from you, my brother.
I appreciate that. I'm too old to laugh.
I love when you say that.
Well, I really am.
I don't know that's high praise coming from you because, I don't sit down to do any of those things. I just write
right.
And like I said, one of my younger poets who's educated in poetry and creative writing and, has got his PhD now in that genre. He goes, every time I read your poetry, you remind me of Walt Whitman. And I take that as high praise. I take that as such high praise. So I'm blessed, brother.
Yes,
I'm blessed that God, Yah, said, hey, your creativity didn't go away, it just morphed into poetry. I'm so glad I listened to that voice. And on that day when that blast of inspiration came and I was positioning an assignment to my students and I followed through on it.
All right.
Because that has led to this. And that moment led to us meeting. And I just know you and I have things to do in this world. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this time. I'm grateful for you, for the Quintessential Poetry Network, and you bring poets together. Like I said, I've gotten the opportunity to listen to a number of poets and how you take care of them. So I'm honored, brother. I'm honored. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad that our paths crossed too. I've learned so much from you. Things I've yet to share that I've learned. So again, I want to thank you for joining me. Now to the listening audience. As you know, I share every time we're together that poetry read somewhere throughout the land. Take care, everybody.
Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio, is available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. You can also check out the website at QLPOR.com.